Howdy. So I've recently been encountering an issue with my main tripod setup. I put this thing together maybe about a year ago at this point. It's a light stand with a smaller tripod in it, so this way I can quickly switch to low to the ground shots or have a more compact setup to take outside, and I can adjust my height with one knob rather than three. I really do love this setup, but my camera rig has been getting heavier ever since I started using these giant drill batteries as a power solution. With the way I set up the plate on that, it actually moved the camera forward, so now the camera will droop unless I really tighten this thing down. Or when I have a smaller lens on there, then the whole thing floats backwards. There's not a great way of balancing that out because it changes. My issue is that this tripod has a leveling mechanism that doesn't lock in, so when this thing is really clamped and I go to try to change the angle, instead of this joint that's supposed to move like that moving, I just get the whole ball joint moving, which is not even left and right, so slowly over time my angle becomes tilted. Now I got a skewed shot. I know, user error, just untighten this every time you want to change the angle, but that's a hassle. I'm changing the angle of this thing hundreds of times per day, and it doesn't have to be this way. I can have a lock. So while I'm starting off my month with a bunch of efficiency improvements to speed up my production timeline, what better time than now to fix this? So here's my thought process for this. I don't need a leveler at all when I'm filming inside, because the floor's flat. This little arm could probably get tightened up, but regardless, I want a physical lock. The way this thing works, it's on a post and there's a ball joint there. So I figure if I design a little ring here with the right thickness and then drop the whole thing down into it, we can have this whole head of the tripod sitting on that and no more random moving of the ball joint. While we're at it, to kill two birds with one stone, another annoying thing about this has been when I try to tilt it up too far, my grip hits the tripod legs. Not the biggest deal, but since I'm already designing a stopper here, I can just raise it by 1 or 2 inches, and then I get access to way more vertical angles. So let's make some measurements and 3D print something. I started off by measuring my dimensions for the ring that's going to lock the ball joint in place. The part could be as simple as that, but I also want it to be a spacer to get the head of the tripod away from the legs. I just eyeballed a good spot and measured it at 30 millimeters. Next, the tube is going to need a little spherical end to sit in that hole so it doesn't move side to side. All I had to do here was measure the diameter and the distance from the vertex. Then I drew up that cross section of the circle in my 3D model and revolved it. That does it for the bottom, but to eliminate any movement on the top end, I modeled the same curve as a negative to fit the head of the tripod. I did make a minor mistake here that I'll have to fix later, but for now, that is the final part. When I got everything set up in the slicer program and it said it was going to take 3 hours, I decided it doesn't need to be this big, so I cut it down to 20 millimeters instead of 30. That change saved me an hour, and with that, I was ready to print. So let's see, to get this printer going, I'm going to have to switch it off the flexible filament from the other day, and I'm going to go with yellow PLA. I built this little filament holder into my shelf. It's just a piece of pipe with some extra PVC around it to make it easier to spin around. Works pretty good. I haven't had an issue with it yet. Also, I know I should be storing my filament in boxes so it doesn't take on moisture. I'll get around to it, but a lot of that stuff I think I'll be using pretty quick. We can get our lovely yellow PLA in there. A little bit of bed cleaning, just scrape the old stuff off there with a razor blade. I don't clean my build plate nearly enough, but I really never have any issues with bed adhesion. Now this print doesn't have any super tight tolerances, so what I'll usually do here is crank the print speed. This can make it messier and in theory weaker, but I print all my stuff with a ton of wall loops and pretty dense infill anyway. So it should be plenty strong, maybe just a couple ugly spots. And then because I've got an Ender 3 and not a fancy bamboo, I gotta tinker with the Z offset. Let's see, how's it doing? So that's too high. So we'll bring down the Z offset to compensate. It's so janky, but this is how I do it. We don't want it too low though and impeding the flow of the filament, so I'm gonna raise it a touch. Oh yeah, that sucker's moving. To be honest, I don't really know what the user experience is like using any super fancy printers. My experience with 3D printing has been, I got to mess around with it in like 2014, 2015 when they were still really new, and it was such a slog. It was so slow. So to me, the Ender 3 feels like pretty hassle-free in comparison, even though I'm told it's the one you have to tinker with all the time. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm missing, and I'm okay with keeping it that way. Okay, things are starting to level out now. We had a little bumpy spot back here on the seam line because I had the Z offset too low and the flow was getting constricted, but I raised it a layer or two in and it evened out. Everything is nicely stuck to the build plate, so this should be a success. I always have to watch it like a hawk for the first 3 or 4 layers, and then after that it's always fine. Lovely. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I was editing and it started screaming at me. It said max temp reached, restart required. That's not surprising given that I don't have a cooling fan on it right now. Other than that, print went pretty well so far. There's some little gaps and ugly spots, like I said. That's going to be a side effect of just cranking the speed without adjusting flow rate and anything else. Oh, what's it doing now? Oh, well, this thing was loose. It was like coming out. That might have just gotten jostled out of place. I'm going to assume that's the heater. In any case, the print feels very sturdy so far. It's running away from me. Got to drop the Z offset again so it knows where it is. Oh, not that low. No. Bro was going off-road there for a second. Okay, I think we're back. Just a little hiccup, not too bad. That must have happened because I said everything usually goes fine after layer 3 or 4. I jinxed it. It's done. And all things considered, actually looks pretty good. That's a solid thing. Is this gonna fit? No. Well, that does nothing for my issue. I went off the calculations to the apex of the curve and not all the way to the top. I need another 9 millimeters of stuff. Oh well, this gives me an opportunity to try something stupid that I've been thinking about for a minute. Okay, hear me out. We glue this back to the build plate and print another 9 millimeters of circle on top. Have any of you done this before? I'm sure somebody has. I need like a pretty strong adhesive, but one that I can get off after. Double-sided tape? Oh, I have double-sided Gorilla Tape. That'll do. I want to get this as centered as possible. This has quickly turned from a simple tripod modification into a 3D printing tinkering video. We'll just make another 39 by 50 circle, another 40 minutes. That's not so bad. So, how am I going to trick this thing into thinking that the build plate is all the way up there? I just started it, so we're going to have to find out. We put a ruler up there. Yeah. Hell yeah. Alright, well, it don't look right, but it don't look that wrong either. To no one's surprise, the second print on top was misaligned. You can see me like slowly correcting it as it went just by moving the build plate. But you know what? It is actually adhered. So I just got to move a little bit of material around. Not a big deal. I'm probably strengthening the part a little bit doing this anyway. The outside doesn't matter at all, apart from aesthetics, which are out the window. All right, let's see if that fits. Yes. Even if I fully release the ball joint lever, nothing. So now I can absolutely crank this knob as much as I want, put a ton of force on it. The light stand will drop before the ball joint moves. Sweet. I am happy that I made that. It's not even necessarily just about being able to have the tilt tightened. It's just like a peace of mind thing that I know as long as this yellow part's on there. If the feet of the tripod are on flat ground, this is level. One last thing to keep track of while I'm filming. That is all for today. If all goes well, I will see you again tomorrow with a camera mod video, and thank you for your time.